A white police force sets up a black woman, oblivious to her true identity as a CIA operative. In the courtroom, the truth erupts with undeniable force. In the stillness of a Virginia night, 2 officers halted a black woman, leveling accusations of a crime she had not perpetrated. What began as a simple stop soon descended into a shadowy affair, a meticulously orchestrated trap. Yet, what these officers remained unaware of was that their target was far from an ordinary woman. She possessed the ability to dismantle all that they believed they had in their grasp. This narrative unfolds with an unexpected twist, revealing a tangled web of deceit and corruption, culminating in a revelation so powerful it threatens to destabilize the very foundation of the police department. The eves settled softly over Arlington, Virginia, enveloping the town in a serene hush. The soft glow of streetlights pulsed above the abandoned sidewalks, while the rare sound of a car rushed through the vacant streets. Talia Porter positioned herself behind the wheel of her polished black SUV. Her fingers eased on the steering wheel as she navigated the quiet suburban streets. She cast a fleeting look at her watch. The clock had just struck midnight. The day stretched on, yet a flicker of achievement warmed her spirit. Her covert mission in this quaint town was approaching its conclusion, and she possessed all the essentials for a seamless departure. As she neared a tranquil intersection, she eased her pace. Her keen gaze detected the subtle shimmer of a reflective stop sign. Talia possessed an acute awareness of details, a skill she had meticulously refined through years of experience as a field operative. She halted completely, her hands firm on the wheel, before making a left onto the subsequent street. In an instant, the blue and red lights illuminated the space behind her, their vibrant glow reflecting in her rearview mirror. The haunting cry of a siren broke the tranquility of the night. Talia's heart remained calm. She had prepared for instances such as this. In that moment, her thoughts crystallized, and her breath became a calm rhythm. She caught a glimpse in the mirror as the squad car approached, its headlights stretching shadows across her dashboard like dark fingers reaching out. With a steady hand, she maneuvered her car to the roadside, switched off the engine, and opened the glove compartment to fetch her license and registration. The patrol car came to a halt just behind her, its lights continuing to flash in a rhythmic dance of red and blue. 2 officers emerged, their movements measured and intentional, coming into view with a purposeful grace. A tall man with a square jaw and an air of authority in his stride was the first to approach. His companion, more compact and robust, trailed closely behind. Clad in the navy blue uniforms of the Arlington Police Department, they stood with badges that shimmered beneath the glow of the streetlights. Talia took note of their names as they approached: Officer Brandon Carter and Officer Mark Sullivan. "Good evening, ma'am," Officer Carter intoned, his voice imbued with a commanding familiarity. He bent down a fraction, directing his flashlight into her window, the beam gliding over her face and the interior beyond. "Do you understand the reason I stopped you this evening?" Talia maintained a composed demeanor, locking eyes with him unflinchingly. "No, officer," she responded with calm assurance. "No, officer," she responded with calm assurance. "I was not exceeding the speed limit, and I came to a complete stop at the intersection." Officer Carter's lips curled slightly, a faintly patronizing smile playing at the edges. "You know, you didn't quite come to a halt at that sign back there," he remarked. "That constitutes a moving violation." Talia's brow knitted gently, yet she held her poise with unwavering grace. "I'm certain I came to a halt, officer," she stated, her voice steady yet resolute. "If you're mistaken, license and registration," Carter interrupted, his voice taking on a steely edge. Talia extended the documents to him with a calm assurance, each motion measured and intentional. She felt no inclination toward unwarranted conflict. Carter scrutinized her documents, his gaze lingering on her license. She sensed his gaze upon her, the delicate change in his attitude as he unraveled the essence of who she was. "Virginia Plate's local address," he murmured almost to himself. Then raised his voice. "Do you live nearby?" Talia gave a subtle nod, affirming her agreement. Officer Sullivan, positioned at the rear of her vehicle, suddenly raised her voice. "Hey, Carter, you might want to take a look back here." Carter stood tall, returning Talia's documents in silence. "Stay in the car," he commanded, then pivoted to join his partner at the rear of her SUV. Talia's jaw clenched as she observed them in her peripheral vision, reflected in the side mirror. Sullivan gestured toward something, his voice a hushed whisper, laden with intrigue. Carter nodded, and the two officers shared a glance that ignited a flicker of unease in her chest. It wasn't fear. Talia seldom experienced such a sensation. Instead, it was a piercing, instinctual warning that gripped her. Shortly thereafter, Carter reappeared at her window, his demeanor now somber. "Please exit the vehicle, ma'am." Talia inclined her head ever so slightly, her voice steady yet inquisitive. "Could I inquire as to the reason, officer?" Carter replied. "We have grounds to suspect that you are in possession of illegal substances." His tone was sharp, nearly scripted. Talia's gaze sharpened. She reiterated the phrase, "illegal substances." "It seems there may have been an oversight on your part. We'll see about that," Carter said, gesturing for her to leave. Sullivan stood by the rear of her vehicle, a self-satisfied grin etched upon his features. Talia stifled a sigh as she opened the door and stepped outside. Her movements flowed with a calm assurance, each gesture purposeful, as if time itself were a luxury she could afford. She remained poised, her hands resting at her sides, as Sullivan dramatically hoisted her trunk and pointed toward a small, unmarked bag that sat conspicuously at the edge. "There it is," Sullivan exclaimed, feigning astonishment. "What knowledge do you possess?" "A pouch filled with fine, delightful substance." Talia's gaze darted to the bag before returning to the officers, her expression a mask of inscrutability. Yet within her, thoughts raced, meticulously cataloging each detail. She was certain the bag had not been there when she departed from her house. A carefully orchestrated scheme lay beneath the surface. Carter inched nearer, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "Is there anything you would like to share with us, ma'am?" Talia's lips curled ever so slightly, a delicate, measured expression that revealed neither trepidation nor remorse. "I'll reserve my thoughts for the right occasion," she remarked. Carter let out a laugh, unmistakably reading her composure as a sign of arrogance. "Your opportunity will come. You are hereby placed under arrest for the possession of controlled substances with the intent to distribute." As Sullivan approached to secure the cuffs around her wrists, Talia acquiesced, her eyes unwavering and resolute. "You're making a big mistake," she said softly, her voice imbued with a quiet intensity that caused Sullivan to hesitate for a fleeting moment before fastening the cuffs into place. "We'll see," Carter said, guiding her toward the squad car. "Let us observe the extent of your confidence before the judge." As they drove away, Talia's eyes drifted out the window, her thoughts whirling through a myriad of possibilities. The two officers may have believed they had stumbled upon a straightforward arrest, yet they remained blissfully unaware of the true nature of their quarry. The journey to the station unfolded in a heavy stillness, thick with unspoken words. The sole sounds that filled the air were the steady hum of the engine and the sporadic crackle of the police radio. Talia occupied the back seat of the patrol car, her hands restrained behind her, her demeanor unyielding. The fluorescent glow of passing streetlights cast ephemeral shadows across her face, yet her gaze remained steadfastly locked on the road ahead. Her thoughts, sharp and deliberate, churned within her mind. Each instant of the meeting unfolded in her thoughts, akin to a puzzle gradually coming together, piece by piece. The non-existent stop sign, the officer's self-assured demeanor, the strategically placed bag. It was not merely a spontaneous act of corruption. It was meticulously planned and rehearsed. These were not mere mistakes. They were deliberate choices. Officer Carter cast a sidelong glance at her through the rearview mirror, a subtle smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "You don't appear to be overly concerned," he remarked, shattering the stillness. His voice dripped with a hint of mockery, as though he sought to incite her. Talia locked eyes with him in the reflection, her stare unwavering, resolute. "Should I be?" Carter chuckled, shaking his head. "You're either courageous or foolish, madam. I've observed many individuals put on a brave front, yet that facade rarely endures in the confines of the holding cell." Talia remained silent. Her lack of response spoke volumes. She was all too familiar with men like Carter, accustomed to wielding power, manipulating the rules to suit their needs, and departing unscathed. For the moment, she allowed him to think he held the reins, The mirage was destined to fade. The station lay in a hush as they made their entrance. The night shift officers sprawled behind their desks, cradling steaming cups of coffee and exchanging murmurs in subdued tones. Carter and Sullivan guided Talia through the entrance, the harsh fluorescent lights illuminating the scuffed linoleum floors and the peeling paint that adorned the walls. "We've landed a big one tonight," Carter declared, his voice booming with confidence. The other officers lifted their gazes, curiosity ignited. Sullivan flung the bag of powder onto the counter, his movements imbued with a dramatic flair. Sullivan remarked, having caught her in the act. "It seems she has been evading more than just stop signs." Talia held her tongue, her eyes scanning the room with quiet intensity. She observed the strategic positioning of each camera, the arrangement of the desks, and the easy rapport shared among the officers. It was a quaint station, the sort where familiarity reigned supreme, a tapestry woven with shared secrets and silent understandings. They led her to a fingerprinting station, where Carter unclasped the cuffs and gestured for her to position her hands on the ink pad. She acquiesced in silence, her actions measured and purposeful. The officer at the station, a youthful figure with weary eyes, paused momentarily as he looked her way, as if he could sense that something was amiss. "Name?" he inquired, his voice tinged with a hint of regret. "Talia Porter," she responded with calm assurance. "What is your profession?" Talia paused for a fleeting instant, weighing her response. "Consultant," she said at last. It possessed a certain ambiguity that allowed it to evade close examination, yet retained an authenticity that prevented any blatant falsehood. The young officer nodded, fingers dancing over the keys, though a palpable unease lingered in the air. Carter and Sullivan, blissfully unaware, shared a soft laugh as they leaned casually against the counter. "Are you savoring the performance?" Talia inquired, her tone slicing through their mirth with precision. Both men shifted their gaze to her, their self-satisfied expressions wavering for the briefest moment. "You've got a sharp tongue," Carter remarked, his voice taking on a menacing edge. "Let's see how amusing you find it after a night behind bars." Talia's cell exuded a chill, its shadows dancing in the faint light. The metal bench, firmly anchored to the wall, provided scant solace. The bars stretched their elongated shadows over the cold concrete floor, while a subtle hum from the fluorescent lights resonated above. She perched on the bench, her spine erect, her demeanor resolute. The door banged closed behind her, its reverberations slicing through the stillness of the corridor. Carter paused, observing her with an intriguing blend of curiosity and contempt. "You don't seem like the sort who would find themselves entangled in this sort of affair," he remarked, his tone almost casual. "However, there's no need for concern. The courts have a penchant for a compelling tale of woe. Perhaps they will show you some leniency." Talia inclined her head ever so slightly, her eyes meeting his with an unwavering intensity. "Or perhaps they'll see through yours," she remarked, her voice steady yet tinged with a sharpness that caused Carter to squirm in his seat. He whispered a few words to himself and turned away, abandoning her solitude in the cell. Talia reclined against the frigid metal wall, releasing a slow breath. She understood that her forthcoming actions needed to be exacting. Her struggle transcended her personal quest for liberation. She stood on the brink of revealing a truth far more significant. The stillness of the cell was pierced solely by the subtle drone of the station's HVAC system. Talia lingered, her endurance shaped by countless seasons spent in the field. She was acutely aware that her absence would soon draw attention, and when the moment arrived, questions would inevitably arise. Her team would locate her, as they invariably did. In the interim, she was compelled to assume the role, the serene captive, the ordinary woman with no secrets to unveil. Yet with each fleeting moment came a new chance to watch, to collect insights. She observed the rhythmic footsteps of the night shift officers as they moved past her cell, their routines and patterns etched in her memory. She attuned her ears to the subtle beeping of the station's computers and the soft crackle of the radio. Each nuance held significance. When the moment arrived, she would stand prepared. In the station's break room, Carter and Sullivan reclined with steaming mugs of coffee, their laughter echoing through the cozy confines. "She believes she is invulnerable," Sullivan remarked, a slow shake of his head accompanying his words. "Did you catch a glimpse of her expression?" "Not a single spark of alarm." "Indeed, that will change," Carter replied, a smirk dancing on his lips. "She has become merely another entry in the vast machinery of the system. No one is likely to probe too far. Moreover," Sullivan remarked, "we possess all that is necessary. The evidence stands unassailable." Unbeknownst to them, the young officer from the processing desk lingered in the shadows, observing quietly. His complexion was ashen, and his gaze flitted anxiously toward the holding cells. A sense of unease lingered within him regarding the entire situation, yet he chose to remain silent. In this station, daring to question senior officers was not merely discouraged. The peril was palpable. In the confines of her cell, Talia shut her eyes, her breath even and calm. Time passed slowly, yet she remained awake. There was no necessity for her to do so. With each passing minute, the inevitable approached, drawing nearer to the moment when all would unravel. The tempest approached, and Talia stood as its serene center. A faint sliver of dawn crept through the narrow, elevated window of Talia's confinement. The soft illumination brushed against the frigid concrete walls, heralding the dawn of a fresh day. Talia remained largely still throughout the night. Perched on the cold metal bench, she sat upright, her eyes gently half closed, reminiscent of someone lost in deep contemplation. Sleep was a rare indulgence for her amidst the chaos of missions. Her intellect was keener in this manner, perpetually assessing, foreseeing. The soft murmur of voices wafted in from the corridor beyond her cell. The station stirred with energy. As the day shift officers embarked on their familiar routines, she paid close attention, discerning the unique sounds and footsteps, subtle cues that unveiled deeper insights into the individuals laboring in that space. A sharp buzz pierced the air, heralding the unlocking of the cell block door, soon accompanied by the resonant thud of heavy boots reverberating through the corridor. Talia remained unperturbed as Officer Sullivan materialized before her cell, clipboard in hand and his customary smirk plastered across his face. "Morning, sunshine," he said, his voice laced with a playful sarcasm. "Did you manage to sleep well, or was the cot lacking in luxury for your taste?" Talia locked eyes with him, her unspoken words creating a tension that unsettled him more than he would ever acknowledge. He adjusted his stance ever so slightly, casting a fleeting glance at his clipboard. "This afternoon you have a bail hearing," he remarked, tapping the paper with his pen. "However, in all honesty, I wouldn't advise raising your expectations. In this region, judges have little patience for those involved in drug trafficking." She inclined her head, her demeanor serene yet resolute. "It's reassuring to hear," she responded gently. Sullivan's brow furrowed, the assurance in his smirk wavering for just an instant. He cleared his throat, taking a step back. "Enjoy your breakfast," he murmured, pivoting on his heel and striding away. Talia reclined against the wall, her eyes tracing his figure as he faded into the corridor. The fissures in their veneer began to reveal themselves. What she required was merely a touch more time. At the front desk, Officer James Keller, youthful and brimming with enthusiasm, observed as Sullivan made his way through the station with a confident stride. There was an unsettling quality to the entire situation that lingered in Keller's mind. He had handled numerous arrests during his brief tenure, yet this particular one resonated with an unmistakable distinction. The suspect, Talia Porter, exhibited behavior unlike anyone Keller had ever encountered. She exhibited neither defiance nor aggression, yet fear did not shadow her demeanor. Her serene presence, her carefully chosen phrases, felt distinctly unusual. And then came the bag of drugs. It sat there in the trunk, almost too convenient, resembling a gift-wrapped package waiting to be unwrapped. Keller paused, his fingers poised delicately above the keyboard. He understood the unspoken codes of the station. There was no inquiry directed towards the senior officers, yet the uncertainty gnawed at him, an insistent presence he could not dispel. His eyes flicked to the surveillance monitors affixed above his desk, the live feed revealing the corridor beyond Talia's cell. She sat upon the bench, motionless like a statue, her face a canvas of inscrutable emotions. Keller bit his lip, a faint glimmer of determination igniting within him. As Keller grappled with his inner turmoil, Talia seized the moment to act. Her hands lay relaxed in her lap, yet her keen gaze remained fixed on the camera stationed just beyond her cell. It was a relic of the past, probably obsolete, and in a state of disrepair. She surmised that the station's budget did not place a premium on cutting-edge surveillance technology. She bided her time until the hallway lay empty, then adjusted her position on the bench, her actions measured yet discreet. Concealed within the hem of her jacket lay a diminutive, unremarkable tracker, a standard piece of equipment for CIA operatives navigating the complexities of the field. With a gentle touch, she laid her hand upon the fabric, eliciting a subtle click from the device hidden within. The tracker emitted a quiet signal, a guiding light destined to connect with her team in mere moments. Her silence was enough. No words or explanations were necessary. They would possess the knowledge of what steps to take. In the break room, Carter and Sullivan savored their coffee, sharing laughter as they perused the morning paper. "She's likely in there, convinced that we'll break," Carter remarked, shaking his head. "They consistently believe they can charm their way out of any situation." Sullivan let out a soft chuckle. Indeed, she is about to face a harsh reality. This case is undeniably strong. We possess the substances, the documentation of the arrest, and a complete absence of witnesses. No one is coming to her rescue. Carter reclined in his chair, a contented smile playing on his lips. "Do you know what I appreciate about this role? The certainty. One encounters the same archetypes repeatedly. They believe themselves to be more intelligent than we are, yet they never truly are." Their laughter resonated within the confines of the room, blissfully unaware of the tempest gathering just outside their comprehension. In a nearby office, a plain phone emitted a gentle buzz from atop a desk. A hand extended to grasp the receiver, the voice on the line steady yet commanding. The voice announced, "Signal received. Location has been verified, and resources are being deployed accordingly." Talia reclined her head against the wall, allowing her eyes to flutter shut for a fleeting instant. She sensed the gears turning, the silent precision of her team orchestrating their efforts in the background. With each passing second, she felt herself inching toward the unavoidable confrontation that awaited her. She lifted her eyelids, revealing a soft, fleeting smile, a smile devoid of joy, yet brimming with a serene assurance. The officers were blissfully unaware of the impending storm that loomed ahead. The station thrummed with the familiar rhythm of morning life, officers diligently filing reports, fielding calls, and sharing light banter over steaming cups of coffee. Life continued its relentless pace for all, save for Talia Porter and the two men who had meticulously plotted her capture. For Carter and Sullivan today resonated with the sweet echoes of triumph. Talia remained still in her holding cell, her demeanor as poised as always. Beyond the bars, she glimpsed the fringes of the station's bustle, fleeting shadows drifting by, fragments of dialogue weaving through the air. Yet she stayed resolute. She possessed the art of merging with the surroundings, becoming a shadow until the precise instant when her presence was indispensable. Hours had passed since her signal was dispatched, and her faith in her team was unwavering. Yet she was aware that they would not spring into action right away. The moment was of utmost importance. Meanwhile, she had to plant the seeds of uncertainty. At the front desk, Officer Keller's gaze flicked back to the holding cell monitors once more. Talia remained largely still since her arrival, yet there was an unsettling quality to her demeanor that tugged at him. It was neither fear nor defiance, two emotions he often encountered in detainees. It was a sense of patience, an understated confidence that appeared oddly out of place for one facing accusations of drug trafficking. With a lingering sense of discomfort, Keller accessed her file on his computer. Her driver's license details and address were clear-cut, yet an intriguing void lingered in her employment history. The system marked her latest position as an independent consultant, yet provided no additional information. Keller frowned as he minimized the file, his gaze drifting toward the break room, where Carter and Sullivan shared laughter over donuts. Their light-hearted attitude twisted his stomach in knots. Despite his reservations, Keller resolved to examine the arrest report more closely. As he navigated the digital archives, he meticulously examined the account presented by Carter and Sullivan. As he came to a halt for neglecting to yield at a clearly marked intersection, Keller muttered softly to himself, his words spilling forth in a quiet recitation. The driver displayed signs of anxiety throughout the interrogation. Permission to conduct a search has been granted. Substances under regulation discovered in the vehicle's trunk. There was an unsettling discrepancy. He had honed his skills to discern the subtle patterns of deceit. Though the report adhered to the established procedure, it exuded an air of artificiality, appearing overly polished and rehearsed. As the hours slipped away, Keller found his internal conflict intensify. He wandered restlessly near the holding cells, his gaze drifting toward Talia's cell more and more often. At last, he summoned the bravery to voice his thoughts. "Miss Porter," he said, pausing just beyond the confines of the bars. Talia lifted her gaze, her dark eyes keen and scrutinizing. "Indeed." Keller paused, his hand lingering on his belt. "I simply wish to inquire. Did you genuinely give your consent for the search of your vehicle?" Talia inclined her head ever so slightly, observing him with keen interest. In his eyes, she discerned the flicker of uncertainty, the subtle fractures in his determination. "What are your thoughts, Officer Keller?" she inquired, her voice steady yet incisive. Keller gulped, a knot forming in his throat. I'm just doing my job," he said, his voice trembling. "That's precisely what they're relying on," Talia responded, her eyes unwavering. "Individuals such as Carter and Sullivan depend on those like you to avert their gaze." Keller's face turned crimson, and he took a step back, mumbling something incoherent before hastily making his way down the corridor. Yet Talia perceived the uncertainty in his stride, the struggle carved into his visage. A seed was sown. In the midst of Arlington, a modest black sedan came to a halt before an unremarkable building. Within the confines of the space, a man clad in a meticulously tailored suit emerged, each of his movements executed with intention. He stood between two other agents, their presence exuding professionalism and vigilance. "What is the estimated time of arrival for the extraction?" As they stepped into the building, one of the agents inquired. The man glanced at his watch, his face a mask of inscrutability. "We shall move forward once she provides the indication. For the moment, we observe." Within the confines of a secure operations room, the glow of live feeds from the police station danced across multiple monitors. One screen displayed Talia in her cell, poised in serene stillness. Another scene revealed the front desk, where Keller exhibited clear signs of agitation, moving restlessly from side to side. "It appears the child is beginning to show signs of distress," one agent noted. The man responded affirmatively. "We shall employ it when the moment arrives." In the break room, Carter reclined in his chair, savoring his third cup of coffee. Keller was seen earlier. He mentioned to Sullivan. The child appeared as though he had encountered a specter. Sullivan offered a sly grin, his head shaking slightly in disbelief. "Perhaps I am indulging in excessive contemplation. Having just emerged from the academy, they tend to become anxious when faced with the first significant case." "Indeed, let's hope he refrains from probing too deeply," Carter remarked, his voice taking on a somber edge. Sullivan offered a nonchalant shrug. "The evidence is irrefutable, and she lacks any alibi to defend herself. Even if he becomes inquisitive, there's nothing he can substantiate." Carter nodded, yet a subtle shadow of discomfort flitted across his features. For the first time, he entertained the unsettling notion that Keller's doubts might spread like an insidious whisper in the dark. As the hours passed, an air of unease settled over the station. Talia sensed it, a subtle yet undeniable change in the atmosphere. She sensed her team's eyes upon her, poised and ready for the opportune moment to make their move. Keller's footsteps reverberated through the hall once more, but at a more languid pace this time. He lingered at the threshold of her cell, a storm of emotions playing across his face. He spoke softly. "You mentioned they're relying on individuals like me. Could you clarify what you meant by that?" Talia's gaze remained unwavering. She stated with certainty, "You know exactly what I mean. The inquiry stands. What actions will you take in response?" Keller fixed his gaze on her for an extended moment, then turned and walked away, his shoulders rigid with tension. In the operations room, the man in the suit observed Keller's departure on the screen. A subtle smile graced his lips. "He's nearly there," he remarked. "Just one final effort." One of the agents cast a fleeting glance in his direction, and in response, the man's smile broadened, revealing a hint of mischief. "Next, we flip this entire situation on its head." Keller perched at his desk, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the edge while his gaze fixated on the glowing monitor before him. The digital file on Talia Porter lingered on the screen, the words swirling into a haze as his thoughts whirled in a tumultuous dance. A knot began to tighten in his chest, a feeling that had been intensifying ever since the arrest. A sense of unease lingered, and he could no longer brush it aside. He cast a fleeting look at the break room, where Carter and Sullivan continued to laugh, their lightheartedness clashing sharply with his growing discomfort. The station bore an unusual weight, the walls seeming to close in, as if they were silent witnesses to an unvoiced truth. Keller's mind drifted once more to the confines of the holding cell, replaying Talia's words with haunting clarity. That is precisely what they are relying upon. Her voice was steady and measured, as though she possessed an intimate understanding of which buttons to push. Perhaps she did, yet one must ponder. Was she truly in the wrong? As the hours stretched endlessly, Keller's uncertainty transformed into a steadfast determination. He sought answers, yet he was acutely aware of the peril in attracting attention to himself. His standing as a newcomer had already rendered him a prime subject for playful jests. Any indications of defiance might push him into deeper solitude. He bided his time until Carter and Sullivan exited the room, then quietly made his way into the records archive. The fluorescent lights hummed softly above, creating elongated shadows that stretched across the rows of filing cabinets and computer terminals. Keller accessed the system, his hands quivering ever so slightly as he delved into the archives for previous cases linked to Carter and Sullivan. Their names emerged time and again, linked to arrests that unfolded in a disturbingly familiar manner, seemingly trivial traffic infractions spiraling into serious drug allegations. The majority of the defendants were individuals of color, and most faced conviction. A constriction gripped his chest. In the confines of her cell, Talia sat motionless, her form embodying an air of serene composure. Years of training had honed her mind to flourish in such moments, where the weight stretched endlessly and the stakes soared to great heights. Through the bars, she observed Keller's shadow glide by her cell, his pacing now more measured, each step taken with intention. She could perceive the turmoil, the silent battle raging inside him. She sensed it. He was on the brink of shattering the unyielding cycle of blind loyalty that figures like Carter and Sullivan depended upon. She adjusted her position on the bench, her subtle movements drawing his gaze. He halted, pivoting to confront her. "Officer Keller," she said, her voice a gentle yet authoritative whisper. He paused, his fingers clutching the wall's edge as though it were a vital tether. "What is this?" he inquired, his tone subdued, tinged with a hint of defensiveness. "It seems you have witnessed something, haven't you?" she inquired, her head tilting slightly. "A discrepancy that remains unresolved." Keller took a deep breath, his throat tightening. "I am unable to do that." He paused, his voice faltering. "I am simply endeavoring to fulfill my responsibilities." "What precisely is your occupation?" Talia urged on. "To obey commands? To turn a blind eye when aware of wrongdoing?" Keller's jaw clenched, his gaze flickering down the corridor. "You have no idea how things operate in this place," he remarked. "I understand more than you realize," Talia replied, her gaze steady and unyielding. "I understand the sensation of being confined, of believing that options are beyond your reach. Yet you do, Keller. The choice has always been yours." Keller turned to leave, yet her words lingered behind him, an ever-present shadow. He approached his desk once more, his fingers poised delicately above the keyboard. He gazed at the roster of cases linked to Carter and Sullivan, his gut churning with every fresh name that crossed his eyes. At long last, he arrived at a conclusion. Keller initiated a secure email channel, his fingers dancing across the keyboard with increasing speed as his determination crystallized. He affixed the case files he had discovered, accompanied by a note. "To whom it may concern, an issue has arisen at this station. I find myself at a loss, seeking guidance and support. Please, I implore you to assist me." With a swift click, he sent the message, his heart racing as it vanished into the abyss. He was uncertain about who might receive it or whether it would even matter to them. Yet, it marked the initial stride toward fulfilling what he understood to be just. In the break room, Carter reclined in his chair, a coffee cup perched casually on his knee. "Keller's behavior seems off today," he inquired, casting a sidelong glance at Sullivan. Sullivan shrugged. The kid was always peculiar. What could he possibly do? Reveal our secrets. Carter wore a sly grin, though his gaze sharpened with intensity. Nonetheless, remained vigilant regarding his actions. The last thing we require is an inexperienced individual meddling in matters that are none of their concern. That afternoon, as the station buzzed with life, an unremarkable black sedan glided into the lot. Within the confines of the car, Talia's team strategized for their impending action. Their interception of Keller's email unfolded precisely according to their design. At last, they possessed the essential elements to move forward. The team leader adjusted his tie, his voice firm as he declared, "Let's make this clean. We must eliminate any distractions. Our focus should be on revealing the truth from within." Upon exiting the vehicle, the sunlight danced upon their badges, unmistakably marking them as FBI agents. Within the confines of her cell, Talia offered a subtle smile as the door to the station creaked open, revealing the agents who stepped inside. From her vantage point, they remained hidden from view, yet she felt no need to see them. She sensed the presence of her team, their arrival unmistakable. The storm had ceased its brewing. It had arrived in full force. The station's hum faded into an uneasy stillness as the front doors swung open. The agents entered with deliberate grace, their tailored black suits sharp and their badges shimmering beneath the harsh glow of the fluorescent lights. The figure at the forefront, a tall man with silvering hair and a serious demeanor, made his way to the front desk, his gaze sweeping the room with a subtle command. Officer Keller, positioned close by, halted abruptly in the midst of his typing. His heart started to pound in his chest. He found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions, uncertain whether it was fear, relief, or perhaps a blend of both that coursed through him. He observed the lead agent lean slightly over the desk, their voice lowered to a whisper, ensuring that the nearby officers remained oblivious to the conversation. The desk sergeant, a stout figure with a rough exterior, stood tall, his hand moving automatically to grasp the radio affixed to his shoulder. "What's this about?" he inquired, a note of caution lacing his tone. The agent responded, his voice unwavering and precise. "Federal investigation. Immediate access to your records and holding cells is required." The sergeant paused, his brow knitting together as he shared a fleeting look with a fellow officer nearby. The unexpected arrival of the FBI was striking, unsettling even, yet there existed no procedure for complete rejection. "Very well," he murmured, motioning toward the hallway. "Come along." From his desk, Keller observed the interaction, his palms glistening with perspiration. He understood beneath the surface that the email he had dispatched had set this in motion, yet he had not anticipated a reply arriving so swiftly or so prominently. His eyes darted to Carter and Sullivan, positioned by the break room entrance. Their laughter had faded, giving way to muted murmurs and knitted brows. Carter's gaze met Keller's for a fleeting moment, prompting the rookie to avert his eyes, redirecting his attention to the screen before him. The atmosphere in the station shifted, heavy with a tension that seemed to wrap around like a vice. Agent Daniel Price, the lead investigator, entered a small, shadowy interrogation room, accompanied by his team. A second agent maneuvered a cart laden with a portable server and an array of hard drives. Without hesitation, they connected to the station's network and commenced their exploration of its digital archives. Price stood casually against the wall, arms crossed, his gaze fixed on the monitor where lines of code and file names danced in a rhythmic flow. "Anything?" he inquired. The tech agent, a young woman with keen, piercing eyes, gave a subtle nod. "Numerous. Their case files are fraught with contradictions, recurring arrests, similar accounts, and procedural omissions. This goes beyond mere poor policing. It is a manifestation of systemic issues." Price's jaw clenched. "Gather all that is needed. I seek every record, every report, and every shred of evidence connected to those two." Within the confines of her cell, Talia caught the distant whispers of movement echoing through the hallway. She sensed the change, the delicate wave that indicated her team's arrival. The anticipation was nearing its end. She adjusted her position on the bench, her hands gently placed on her lap. The cuff she had donned earlier had etched delicate red lines upon her wrists, yet she paid them no heed. She concentrated on the impending moment, The instant when the truth would finally emerge from the shadows. In the break room, Carter moved restlessly, his coffee abandoned on the counter. Sullivan propped himself against the wall, arms folded, observing his partner with an increasing feeling of disquiet. "Do you believe this revolves around her?" Sullivan inquired at last, his voice barely above a whisper. Carter halted, fixing him with a fierce glare. "Naturally, the focus is on her. What other reason could there be for the presence of the feds?" Sullivan shifted in his seat, a sense of unease washing over him. "Do you believe they are aware?" Carter let out a derisive laugh, yet his tone lacked any real certainty. "Do you want to know something? There's nothing to discover. All our actions adhered strictly to the established guidelines." "Indeed," Sullivan murmured. "Absolutely." Agent Price stepped out of the interrogation room, accompanied by 2 fellow agents. He bore a folder brimming with printed reports, the tangible weight of evidence resting in his grasp. He navigated the station, his face a mask of inscrutability. As he neared the bullpen, his eyes fixed on Carter and Sullivan, who halted their conversation in an instant. The agents advanced with intent, arranging themselves as vigilant sentinels encircling the room. "Officers Brandon Carter and Mark Sullivan," Price declared, his voice slicing through the air with precision. "A conversation with you is necessary." Carter attempted to maintain his composure, a smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth as he advanced. "What is this all about?" he inquired, his voice relaxed. "We have no secrets to conceal." Price remained unfazed. "Excellent. Then you won't hesitate to respond to a few inquiries." The atmosphere grew tense as the agents guided the 2 officers toward the very interrogation room they had just vacated moments before. Keller observed the scene as it unfolded before him, his heart racing with intensity. He observed the fissures beginning to appear in Carter's veneer, the strain evident in Sullivan's posture. The pair that once exuded confidence now resembled trapped creatures, their bravado stripped away. Moments later, a different agent approached Talia's cell. The door emitted a soft buzz as it swung open, allowing the agent to enter. His expression remained impassive, yet his voice carried a tone of respect. "Miss Porter," he said, "you are free to go." Talia rose, her motions fluid and intentional. She locked eyes with the agent, offering a subtle nod as she emerged from the confines of the cell. The hallway radiated a newfound brightness, the heavy atmosphere of the station dissipating as she approached the front desk. As Talia glided past Keller's desk, their gazes intertwined for a fleeting moment. He parted his lips to utter a sound, yet paused, the words ensnared within his throat. She halted, pivoting to confront him completely. "Thank you," she murmured softly. Her voice resonated with a profound, unvoiced comprehension. Keller felt a constriction in his chest. He offered a slight nod, his fingers clutching the edge of his desk. Uncertainty loomed ahead, yet for the first time since donning the badge, a sense of significance washed over him, as if he had finally made a difference. The doors to the interrogation room swung shut behind Carter and Sullivan, quickly drowned out by the rising tide of voices within. Talia observed from the threshold of the station as the agents meticulously unraveled the fabric of the officers' deceptions. The tempest she had long anticipated had arrived at last, and this was merely the outset. Within the confines of the cramped interrogation room, Carter and Sullivan occupied a small metal table, their bodies rigid and tense. Agent Price positioned himself opposite them, his hands poised atop a pile of documents. The stillness lingered awkwardly, interrupted solely by the soft buzz of the overhead light. Thus, Price commenced, his tone deliberate. "Would you prefer to begin with the arrest report, or shall we dive right into the matter of the planted evidence?" Sullivan recoiled, his gaze flickering toward Carter. "We don't know what you're talking about," Carter said firmly, his voice tinged with a resolute defiance. The Price remained steadfast. He instead opened the folder, extracting a collection of printed photographs. He deftly pushed them across the table, one after another. Footage captured by the station's security cameras reveals Carter and Sullivan clutching the unmarked bag just prior to the search of Talia's vehicle. Carter's jaw clenched, yet he maintained his poise. "That doesn't prove anything," he remarked. "We were meticulously gathering evidence." Price arched an eyebrow, inclining forward just a touch. "Is that so? These timestamps reveal a different story." We possess audio recordings thanks to Miss Porter's discreet surveillance device, which reveal your candid discussion on the simplicity of framing her. Sullivan's complexion drained of color, his fingers clenching the table's edge tightly. You can't use that," he sputtered. "That constitutes entrapment." Price offered a sly grin, his head shaking slightly in disbelief. "No, it's justice, and this is merely the beginning. We have gathered documentation from your previous arrests, a multitude of cases exhibiting strikingly similar patterns. Each one is currently undergoing scrutiny. However, I must clarify one point. You shall not be leaving this place today." Carter's confidence started to wane, his shoulders drooping under an invisible weight. Sullivan concealed his visage within his palms, the gravity of their deeds finally crashing down upon him. In the bullpen, Keller occupied his desk, observing the unfolding drama with keen interest. Earlier, he found himself summoned to the interrogation room to verify the particulars surrounding the station's procedures. For the first time, he sensed the weighty scrutiny of Carter and Sullivan as they acknowledged that a voice from within had dared to rise. As the agents made their way back to the bullpen, Keller rose to his feet, his hands quivering ever so slightly. He made his way toward Agent Price, a slight cough escaping his lips as he prepared to speak. "What unfolds next?" he inquired. Price regarded him, a hint of warmth flickering across his features. "Now, we tidy up, and you," he hesitated, examining Keller's expression. "Your decision was commendable." Keller nodded, a subtle wave of relief coursing through him. For the first time since becoming a member of the force, he experienced a profound sense of purpose. Talia lingered by the station's entrance, her gaze fixed on Carter and Sullivan as they emerged, wrists bound in handcuffs. The formerly self-assured officers now appear vanquished, their gazes averted as they are led past their peers. The station hummed with subdued whispers, officers casting bewildered looks at one another as the gravity of the situation settled in. Agent Price made his way to Talia, his demeanor calm yet courteous. "We have all that we require," he remarked. "Your task has reached its conclusion." Talia nodded, her demeanor unwavering. "Excellent. Ensure it adheres firmly." Price offered a subtle smile. "It shall indeed." As Talia emerged into the open, the sharpness of the air greeted her, imbued with an unmistakable sense of conclusion. The burden she had borne for weeks started to ease, giving way to a serene contentment in the realization that justice had finally prevailed. In the days that ensued, the repercussions of the investigations reverberated throughout the town. The arrests of Carter and Sullivan dominated the headlines, their images splashed across every screen in the nation. The allegations against Talia were officially dismissed, and the investigations related to the officers' misconduct were reinitiated. The station experienced a significant transformation, marked by the resignation of several officers amid intense scrutiny. Keller, now regarded as a whistleblower, elicited a spectrum of responses from his colleagues, yet he lifted his chin, fully aware that he had chosen wisely. Weeks later, Talia found herself perched on a park bench, cradling a steaming cup of coffee in her hands. The crisp autumn leaves whispered as they danced around her, their vivid hues a poignant reminder of transformation. She had resumed her tranquil existence, her purpose fulfilled, yet the experience remained etched in her thoughts. Agent Price accompanied her, his presence a fleeting instance of companionship. "There were other ways to approach this," he remarked. Taking a seat next to her, Talia arched an eyebrow, savoring a sip of her coffee. "And forgo the expression etched upon their faces? No, thank you." Price let out a soft chuckle. "Your ability to create lasting impressions is truly remarkable." They lingered in a comfortable quietude for a time. The burden of their labor briefly slipped from memory. For Talia, the storm had subsided, yet the consequences of her choices would continue to resonate, guaranteeing that justice triumphed, at least for the moment. The news raced through the community with an unstoppable fervor. In mere hours following the arrest of Carter and Sullivan, the story had captured the attention of every local and national news outlet. Police corruption unveiled, FBI dismantles corrupt officers in Arlington, proclaimed the striking headline on a prominent news outlet. The scene unfolded repeatedly, showcasing the officers emerging in handcuffs, a stark reminder of the unfolding events. Their expressions were somber, devoid of the bravado they had once displayed so freely. The decision to keep Talia Porter's name out of the media was a deliberate and strategic choice made by her team. The emphasis must stay on the systemic problems at the station and the conduct of the officers involved, rather than on her part in revealing the truth. She favored it in that manner. Her focus lay not in the allure of fame, but in the pursuit of tangible outcomes. Within the confines of a sterile, windowless interrogation room at a federal detention center, Carter and Sullivan found themselves seated across from their legal representatives. Their hubris had dissolved into a palpable urgency, overshadowed by the stark truth of their predicament. The accusations leveled against them were staggering: fabricating reports, orchestrating the planting of evidence, and misusing their power in numerous instances. "This is bad," Sullivan muttered, his voice trembling. "They possess it all. Audio, video, files. What action shall we take?" Carter, typically the more assured of the pair, remained quiet, his jaw tightly set. "We fight it," he said at last, though the conviction in his voice wavered. However, their legal representatives harbored little hope. The overwhelming mountain of evidence loomed large, and the tide of public outrage had decisively turned against them. Plea bargains represented their sole opportunity to evade decades behind bars. At the Arlington Police Department, the repercussions lingered on. Internal investigations uncovered a greater number of officers entangled in comparable misconduct, leading to a wave of resignations as superiors hurried to dissociate themselves from the unfolding scandal. The chief of police convened a press conference, underscoring a dedication to transparency and reform. However, the harm to the department's reputation had already been inflicted. Keller discovered that he had become the focal point of everyone's gaze. He was both lauded and shunned for his part in exposing the corruption. Some colleagues steered clear of him, their allegiance to the established order unwavering, while others discreetly voiced their backing. Keller remained unfazed. He had acted in accordance with his principles, and that alone sufficed. A week following her release, Talia found herself seated across from Keller in a quaint diner nestled on the fringes of town. The ambiance was tranquil, nearly idyllic, a striking juxtaposition to the turmoil they had both faced. Keller perched on the edge of his seat, his fingers nervously tracing the rim of his coffee cup. "I wasn't certain you'd actually come," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Talia arched an eyebrow, a subtle smile dancing at the corners of her mouth. "You earned this conversation," she remarked. "Few would have taken the path you chose." Keller cast his gaze upon the table, a storm of emotions swirling within him. "I simply couldn't continue to avert my gaze," he remarked. "Yet, to be truthful, I'm uncertain whether it truly had any impact. The department remains in disarray, with individuals such as Carter and Sullivan contributing to the chaos." "What? Countless others exist beyond the horizon," Talia responded with conviction. "It mattered to those they harmed. It truly mattered to you. Never underestimate that impact." Her words appeared to dissolve some of his tension, and for the first time, he permitted himself a faint smile. "What of you?" he inquired. "What unfolds next?" Talia reclined in her chair, her demeanor enigmatic. "At this moment, I embark on the next endeavor. Another battle awaits, ever persistent." Months later, Carter and Sullivan found themselves in the courtroom, their destinies irrevocably determined. They admitted their guilt to several charges, each facing an extended term of imprisonment. Their professional journeys had come to an abrupt end, their legacies irrevocably tarnished. At long last, they confronted the repercussions of their choices. The fabrications that had once supported their cases crumbled, leading to the exoneration of those wrongfully accused. Community leaders united in their call for profound reforms, leveraging the scandal as a powerful impetus for transformation. In a tranquil pause, Talia found herself in her minimally adorned apartment, carefully packing a small bag. A dossier sprawled across the table, brimming with the intricacies of her forthcoming mission. With a fleeting glance, she shut it, her thoughts swiftly shifting to the journey that lay before her. The phone resting on the counter vibrated, prompting her to reach for it. Agent Price's voice crackled through the line. Poised for the next challenge, Talia wore a subtle smile perpetually. As she emerged into the brisk evening air, the door softly clicked shut behind her. The battle raged on, relentless, for her and for those she vowed to safeguard. Yet, in this fleeting instant, she permitted herself a whisper of contentment. Justice was finally served. The truth emerged victorious, and for her, that was sufficient. The truth illuminated the darkness, and justice found its rightful place. The corrupt officers, believing they could evade justice, ultimately confronted the repercussions of their misdeeds, while the woman they sought to ensnare rose triumphant, more resilient than before. This tale serves as a poignant reminder that, regardless of how profound the deception may be, the truth possesses an unwavering ability to illuminate the darkness. If this story captivated you and you crave more thrilling narratives, be sure to subscribe and activate notifications to stay updated. Your support is invaluable and breathes life into these narratives. I appreciate your time and look forward to our next encounter.